Hey everyone, welcome to my tutorial. Today with another modeling exercise we're going to create this cute ice cream truck, and I really hope you will enjoy this one, and if you do, please don't forget to leave the like, and if you're new around here, hit that subscribe. Now let's jump into Blender, and first of all let's just select the light and the cube here. Let's press X and choose delete, and now I'll start with the circle for the wheel arch. So let's press Shift A, we'll go mesh and circle, and now I want to keep this fairly detailed, so let's do something like 24 vertices for the resolution. And now let's tab into the edit mode, press R, then Y and 90, and confirm with enter to rotate 90 degrees. And let's look from the side by pressing 3 on a numpad, and let's just drag a selection right here, press X and delete those vertices. And let's now select everything here, press G then Y and move it to the side here. And now let's press Shift D and then Y to duplicate it right here. So we have two wheel arches now. And now let's just drag a selection for these 4 vertices, press E then Z and extrude this downwards just a tiny bit. And now we'll start connecting those vertices. So let's select these two, press F to fill. And now let's select this one here, press E then Y and extrude it slightly, not too much. And now do the same thing in the back here, so press E then Y and extrude. And now here we can go up, so E then Z and extrude. So we're basically creating an outline for the truck. And now let's select this one, press E then Z and move it up here. Now press E and do a little slope like this. And now press E again to extrude the windshield. And now let's just connect these, so select them, press F, and you can see we have slope there, so we can press S then Z and 0 to scale this to 0 and make it on the same level. So let's hit enter, and additionally we can press G then Z and move it up and down if you want to adjust this. So this will serve us as a basic outline for the vehicle. Now this is not the modeling technique that I would usually use for creation of a vehicle as such. This will be very stylized result for something like a cute animation or icon or something, and we'll create the geometry according to that. So no quad based geometry or anything like that that you would see on another vehicle tutorial. So let's just select everything here and rotate, press G then X and move it to the side here. And we can press F and that will basically fill the whole thing with one face. And now let's press E to extrude just a tiny bit here, don't go over the 0 axis. And now we'll press X and delete those faces here. If you just started Blender and you have trouble following all the tutorials, make sure to check out my courses, where in addition to the step-by-step instructions, you also get full in-depth explanation of all the tools and all the steps, and you get to learn everything from simple low poly design all the way to full character illustration, textured environments, even a little bit of sculpting and hard surface modeling. So if you're interested, please check out the link in the description. And now we'll select just the wheel arches, so press 2 for edge select, select this edge right here and hold Ctrl and add to selection like this. And now we can press F to fill this, and let's do the same thing here. So select this edge, hold Ctrl and go along the loop to select everything here, press F to fill. And now we can alt click this loop. Let's go and add a mirror modifier. Let's enable clipping and press E then X and extrude this until it connects. So this is the base for the vehicle that we now have. Now if you didn't match the proportions here, you can just go to front view, enable X-ray view right here, press 1 for vertex select, and basically just move these things up and down, or move this outside or inside, depending on what you want to achieve. So basically in the front view I want this to barely resemble a square, and now this we can move this towards the outside a little bit more like this. And from the side maybe it is a little bit too long, I want this like cute and stylized, so press G then Y and move it inside a little bit like this. And now we'll bevel some of these edges to make this nice and rounded, so press 2 for edge select, alt click this loop and press Ctrl B to bevel and increase number of cuts with the mouse wheel to create something like this. And we can go a little bit more dense like that, because I won't be using any subdivision modifier here, so this will be purely manual geometry. So let's do the same thing right here. And now we can alt click this loop, hold Alt and Shift and select the one on the other side and do the same thing, and we can go a little bit more dense here. Add one more loop with the mouse wheel and do something like this. And now let me disable that X-ray view, and I want to bevel this side right here. So let's select this edge, hold Control, and go around your model like this until you have this edge selected, and press Ctrl B and bevel. And I think something like 4 segments will be okay. Only thing you need to be careful, you can see we already have some overlaps happening here in the back. So let me go back here and show it to you. The moment you start go over, the weird geometry will happen there. So make sure you don't overlap those vertices. So do something like this here. And now let's just select the wheel arch edges again. So again, I'm holding Control to add to the selection, and we'll do a small bevel here as well. So Control B, do bevel, and I think 3 segments will be totally fine here. And before I bevel this in the back, let's just delete this bottom geometry for now. So press 3 for face select, and select all of these faces, press X and delete them. And now press 2 again for edge select, alt click this loop, alt and shift to select this one, press Control B and do a small bevel. And again, I'm looking for something like 2 segments here. And now we can alt click this loop and press F to fill it at once. And basically now we can press Control B to create the bevel here as well. Just a small one like this with 2 segments. So yeah, we now have a nice solid body. There's a large angle on here, but that doesn't really matter because we are going to adjust the normals so the shading looks fine on the outside. So tab out, right click and shade smooth. And now let's go to the modifiers and let's add weighted normals. So let's go normals and weighted normal. And you can see now the shading looks really nice. It's nice and rounded. We didn't even need to use the subdivision surface modifier. So I really like this. Let's create some wheels. So let's press Shift A and we'll add a circle here. 24 vertices is still okay. So let's just press G, then Shift Z to move this on X and Y axis and place it somewhere here. Now press R, then Y and rotate 90 degrees, so 90 and enter. Let's look from the side by pressing 3 on a numpad, and we'll adjust the position like this. And let's make this smaller. So tab into the edit mode and press S to scale it down a little bit, just like that. And now press F to fill and E to extrude the wheel. Now let's tab out, press G then X and push it inside here like this, and let's bevel this as well. So tab into the edit mode. This one is already selected, so hold Alt and Shift and select this loop, press Ctrl B and bevel. Now let's increase number of cuts to 3 and do something like this here. Now press 3 for face select, select this one, press I to inset and E to extrude. And now we can press 2, alt click this loop, press Ctrl B to bevel this as well. So we have a nice and rounded wheel. And now alt click this loop, press I to inset, press G then X and move it outside like this. Tab out, right click and shade smooth. Now to make this shaded a little bit better, let's tab in, let's alt click this loop and press Ctrl E and do mark sharp. They'll mark this as sharp, so even if the whole object is smooth shaded, it will break it there and create a hard edge. And we can do the same thing right here. So mark sharp and you get something like this. So now in the modifiers panel, let's add the mirror modifier here as well. And we can use the eyedropper tool to change the center for mirroring for this object. So you can see we have the wheel on the other side as well now. Let's look from the side and we can press Alt D, then press Y and move this here. So now we have the truck with the wheels. So let's add some details. I will start with the windows here. And this part will be a little bit tricky in terms of the geometry, but stay with me here. So let's select the truck, tab into the edit mode. And here we're going to need to create an opening for the window. So press 3 for face select, press K for knife tool and make it snap here, click. And now press A to angle snap and C to cut through. You can see it right here down there, there is a cut through. And if you press C, you will see it enabled or disabled. And now let's go all the way to the back, left click to confirm. And additionally, we need to press enter to confirm the cut. So now it goes all the way. That's why the cut through was important there. Okay, and now press K again. And let's do one here. And again, I'll press A and a C and do a cut towards the bottom and confirm. Now let's enable the X-ray view and select this edge press G, then Y, and move it back a little bit so I have a little bit more space for the window here. And now press 3 for face select, select this face right here, and now we'll press I to inset. But now what I want to do here is to do these corners around it as well. So what I'm gonna do is to select these faces right here, press X and delete those. So we basically punch the hole in the side there. Press 1 for vertex select, hold shift, select all of these vertices, and press Ctrl Shift B for vertex bevel, and do a bevel like this. And now if you alt click this loop, it should select all around, and press F to fill, and you will fill this again with an addon, but doesn't really matter because now we have the opening that we need. So press 3 for face select, select this one here, and press E to extrude inside. And now you can press 2 for edge select, alt click this loop, make sure to select this part as well, so hold alt and shift and add to the selection there, and press Ctrl B and bevel like this. You can do something like 3 segments. Okay, and now we can disable X-ray view and preview how this looks like. It's quite okay, but I don't like the shading on the window there. I wanted this to be sharper, but marking sharp won't help us here because we're using weighted normal. So what we can do is just separate this. So you can press Y to separate it. It will still be part of that object, but it will be separated. So if you press G, you can move this freely. And we'll do the same thing now in the front to create another window. So let's press Ctrl R to create a loop cut here and slide it somewhere here. And let's press Ctrl R and add one more to the side here. And let's do one more here and one more right there. And now let's just press 3 for face select and select all of these faces that surround the window. And press X and delete them. Press 1 for vertex select, select these vertices on the side there. Press Ctrl Shift B and bevel. And now I want to connect this back, but before I do that, I need to close the geometry somewhere because I cannot fill this hole without first connecting it to the rest of the geometry. So we can press 2 for edge select, select this edge right here, press E then X and just connect it to the middle there. And now if you hold Alt key and select the loop, and now Alt and Shift and add the rest of the loop to the selection and press F, this should fill in nicely. And now you have this nice rounded opening, and you can do the same thing as here on the side. So press 3 for face select, select these and extrude them inside like that. Press 2, alt click this loop right here. Don't forget to add this and press Ctrl B and create that same kind of bevel right there. And now 3 for face select, I will select these two and press Y again to separate those into a separate object or into a separate mesh, if you will. And now we have the same effect in the front and on the sides there. And now it's time to add some details. So tab into the edit mode, select this loop right here, using the same method, using Control and adding to the selection, and now hold Shift, select this one, and again holding Control, I will add all of these and press Shift D then Z and move this up here. And now we can press P and separate the selection. That will separate it into a new object. So we can tab out, select the new object, tab into the edit mode. And now we can press A to select all, and then E and Z to extrude. On Z axis, now press A and Alt E and extrude faces along normals like this. Now I want to do some beveling here as well. So alt click this loop, hold Alt and Shift and add these other ones to the selection and press Ctrl B to bevel. Just like that. And now I will remove the weighted normal, right click and shade auto smooth. That will add smooth by angle and increase this to something like 60 degrees so it catches all angles, and we now have something like that in the place. And now we can add some front lights. So shift right click to move the cursor there, press Shift A and let's add a circle. Tab into the edit mode and press S to scale this down, R, X and 90 to rotate 90 degrees. Now press E then Y to extrude, F to fill, and we can press Ctrl B to bevel. 3 for face select, select this one, press I to inset a little bit, E to extrude inside, and I to inset again, press G then Y, move it towards the front, and Ctrl B to bevel to make it rounded again. And same as with the wheels, I will now press 2 for edge select, alt click this loop and press Ctrl E and mark sharp tab out, right click and shade smooth. And this is what we get here, so we can press S to scale it up and down, and then add another mirror modifier and use the car as a center for mirroring, you know, readjust the position. But all in all, I quite like this. So now let's select the car, tab into the edit mode, and we can select this loop right here, hold Shift S and snap cursor to select it. They'll make it snap dead center here, so we can tab out. Let's press Shift A and we can add a plane. Now press R, then X and 90 to rotate 90 degrees. Let's confirm, press G then Z and move this up a little bit, right in between those lights. Tab into the edit mode, press S then Z and scale it down like that. Now we can press Ctrl Shift B to bevel and increase number of cuts with the mouse wheel, and press A and E to extrude like this, and press Ctrl B to bevel. And now we can right click shade smooth, and let's add another panel here on the side here just to have some more detail there. So Shift right click here, press Shift A, add the plane, and again R then Y and 90 to rotate 90 degrees. And I will just tab into the edit mode, press S then Y and scale it up. Press Ctrl Shift B to bevel, and then extrude it same as before basically, and press Ctrl B to bevel. Right click and shade smooth here as well, but there's weird shading happening there, and I think it's the same case here. So if you select these two objects and hit slash on a numpad to isolate them into a local view, you will see there's a face in the back which causes this. So we can tab into the edit mode, press 3 for face select, and just select and press X and delete those faces. Now the shading will be much better. So we can hit slash again to exit the local view, and this looks immediately much better. And we can just move this up and down. And I think this window is a little bit too large, so let me select the car, tab into the edit mode, and in the X-ray view I will just press 1, select all of these vertices and just move them all like this, and then readjust the position for this one. So now let's create like an ice cream that would be placed on the top of the vehicle. So let's place the cursor on the roof here, so I'll tab into the edit mode, for example select this vertex, hold Shift S and snap cursor to select it. Tab out and let's press Shift A and we'll add a circle. And now I think 24 is still okay, so let's just press G then Z, move this up, tab into the edit mode and press E then Z and extrude this down, press S to scale. And now let's hit slash on the numpad for that local view, and we can press F to fill and Ctrl B to bevel and Ctrl R to add few more loop cuts, increase the number with the mouse wheel and confirm, so we have, you know, more even shading there. Now alt click this loop, press F to fill, I to inset and X and delete the face in the middle, and now we can bevel this as well. We can tab out, right click and shade smooth, and this looks already quite nice. So we can hold Shift S, snap cursor to select it, and I will create, you know, the ice cream. So let's press Shift A and we'll add a cube here. Now press Ctrl 2 to add subdivision surface modifier. You will see it added here with the 2 levels of subdivision, and we can scale it up a little bit like this. But now the problem is this is not spherical. So first of all, let's apply this. Now tab into the edit mode, and here you can click and hold to switch this to sphere. And now if you click and drag, you will see it will become more spherical. But you can release this and you can readjust the factor all the way to 1, and now this is perfectly spherical. So now let's look from the side here by pressing 3 on a numpad. Let's enable X-ray view. Let's go to select box and let's select all of these vertices at the bottom, press X and delete them. Alt click this loop, press E then Z and extrude this down, press S to scale, and S then Z and 0 to scale to 0 again, just like this. Maybe readjust a little bit, and now we can press E then Z to extrude this once more, and press S to scale it up, and then E then Z again to extrude. Now let's go select and choose checker deselect. That will make every other vertex selected, and press G then Z and move this up. Now alt click this loop again, and we can press F to fill and I to inset. They'll create something like this here, and we can press X and delete those faces in the middle. And this is what we get here. So let's disable the X-ray view so you can see the shape. And now we can tab out and press Ctrl 2 to add that subdivision modifier here again. And you can see this is the shape that we created. Right click, shade smooth, and we can press G then Z, move this up. and scale it up so it kind of covers the cone here like this, and I really like the shape. So let me just parent this. So hold shift, select the cone, press Ctrl P and parent to object, and now we can hit slash on a numpad to exit the local view, and let's hit 3 to go for a side view, press R to rotate and G to place it right here, and we can scale it up and down if you wish, like this. Now let's look from the camera, so press 0 on a numpad, select the camera and press G then Z twice to move it back here, and G then Z to move it up, something like this. And let's switch the resolution to something like 1600 to 1200. Okay, I really like this. And for the sake of the stylization, I will just select the cone, press R then Z and rotate it slightly here, so we have a better view of it. And now let's hold Shift S, snap cursor to world origin, let's press Shift A and add a plane and scale it up, so this will be our background. And let's make it so it covers the bounds of the camera. And now let's select everything here, but hold Control, deselect this ice cream because that one is parented to the cone already. And now hold Shift, select the body, that will get highlighted in yellow, and now press Ctrl P and parent to object. So now if you select the car, you can move the whole thing, and we can press G then Z and place it right here so the wheels touch the background there. And if we go to the camera view by pressing 0 on the numpad, you will see how the car is now placed on the background there. So let's add some basic light here. So press Shift A, add an area light, press G then Z, move it up. Now let's try to make it quite large, something like this, so it creates nice and soft shadows. And now let's go to render settings, cycles. I will switch to GPU and enable denoising and GPU for the final denoising, and I think 512 samples will be totally fine for the illustration. And now let's hold Z and preview the rendered view, and now let's select the light settings here and let's increase the power to something like 500 or even 1500 probably, and place it a little bit lower so we get these nice soft shadows all around. And to save some compute, we can press Ctrl B and limit the preview only to camera bounds here. So now it's time to add some basic materials. For the most part, I will be adding just a solid, glossy materials there. But for the cone, I have something else in mind, so that's what I want to show you right here. So let's expand new window here, and let's switch to UV editor, and now drag one more window here, and let's switch to shader editor, and let's press N to collapse that side panel, and maybe we can make some more space here for that. And now hit slash on a numpad for the local view, and we can switch to the solid view, tab into the edit mode, and we can alt click this loop right here, press U and mark seam, and now press A, then U and unwrap angle based. So this is what we get. You can also do something like minimum stretch, they'll make it, a nicer unwrap. So yeah, let's try something like this. We can tab out now, and let's hold Z and switch to material preview. And now let's create a new material here. Let's call it cone, for example. And right here, let's press Shift A and we'll go texture, and we'll find a brick texture right there on the top, like this. And to preview the texture, you can just connect the color to the surface here and you will see the preview. So first of all, let's use this UV map for the texture. So let's press Shift A and let's go input and texture coordinate, and let's plug the UV to vector here. So this is already much better. And now we'll just modify this texture right here. So first of all, let's reduce the offset to 0, and let's change the row height to 0.5 so we get these nice squares, and just modify this color to white. And now we can set the border size to something like 0.03 or 0.05 if you want it more thick. So what we can do, let's make sure both of these colors are white. Let's press Shift A and let's add mix color node, plug it here, but plug this into the factor and here into the base color, and finally this to the output. And here we're going to change the color to like a yellowish cone color. We can tab out to better see what we're doing. And now Ctrl C over the color, Ctrl V to place it here. And now this one can go a little bit darker and maybe a little bit more red tone like this, but I already like this much better. So let's hit slash to exit the local view, and let's preview the rendered view. And this is your custom procedural texture made purely with Blender without using any external images. And now we can go ahead and add the rest of the materials. So let's create a new one here, add some color and reduce the roughness. And same for the car, I want this to stay white with a little bit of a reduced roughness. Now tab into the edit mode and we can press 3 and select the windows, create a new material slot, new material, and hit assign. And now change this to something like blue. And now we can look from the side view, and if you add a little bit more color to the vehicle, you can press K for a knife tool and do a cut all across the vehicle right here. But again, remember to enable cut through with C and A for angle snap, and confirm and enter. And now we can press 2 for edge select, alt click this, press Ctrl B and create the bevel there. And now alt click this one and move it a little bit lower. So now we can color this differently. So press 1 for vertex select, enable X-ray view right here, and select all of these vertices, create a new material slot and hit assign, create a new material. And for example, here we can go something like purple or pink again. And then we can press 3 for face select, alt click this loop and create yet another material there. And for example, something like cyan, and hit assign. And now if you tab out, you will have some more color added to the vehicle. And here we can reduce the roughness as well. And same for this one. So we have those, nice reflections. Now let's select the wheels and create the black material. And let's add a new material slot, tab into the edit mode. And with this selected, we can press Ctrl and plus on a numpad to expand the selection. Or you can hold Alt and Shift and add to the selection like this by clicking the loop. And let's hit assign, create a new one. And here I want to go all the way with the metallic value, tab out, and now add the same material to the bumpers and to the lights. But here I want to tab into the edit mode, select this one, and again Ctrl and plus on a numpad to expand that selection. Create a new material slot, and let's switch this to emission shader here. We'll hit assign and let's increase the value here so it really affects the scene. And now let's change the color to something yellowish like this. We can tab out and press G and Y and move it a little bit inside because there was some color bleed there. And here we can use that black color. And I really like this already, so maybe the blue color right here. And let's create a new material for the background as well, something like purple. And now it will be all about lighting. So let's add a new light. Let's press Shift A, add an area light. Press G and Z, move it up. Now this won't be so large. And let's make it disk. And let's hit period on a keyboard to switch to 3D cursor, or you can do it right here. And then we can press R twice to rotate it towards the back like this to create the backlight. And let's do something really strong like 1500 here. Press G then Z and move it back tiny bit like this. So it creates those nice reflections and rim lights. And we can move it higher up like this. And maybe it can be even stronger, something like 3000. And then we can press Shift D to duplicate it, and R then Z to rotate around to create another one from the side, but this one will be weaker, something like 1000 watts or something like that. And we can adjust the rotation as well and maybe modify the color a little bit. And finally, in the world settings, we can make the whole scene brighter and add a little bit of a color. So we color those shadows, make it more stylized. And finally, in the render settings, you can go to color management, increase the contrast and increase the exposure so it's nice and bright. So yeah, that was today's modeling practice in Blender. I really hope you enjoyed this one. And again, if you did, please leave that like. And if you want to learn more like this in the future, hit that subscribe. Thank you all for watching and have a wonderful day.